What's up, friends? I'm Brett Schwellmeyer. That's Pavle Markovic. And this is the Daily Dish Podcast. Play the intro. Anyway, we're excited that you guys are going to be joining us once again today. The Daily Dish Podcast is back for the first time since the NCAA tournaments.
Yeah,
it's been a while.
It's been a long time.
But basketball season is right around the corner.
Yeah.
So we figured Media Day was this past week. We had the men's on we had the women's on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, I already forgot, and it was just a couple days ago.
It's sad.
Men's was on Wednesday because the women's was on Tuesday. It was a good time. I was able to go to both. Pavle, you were at the men's. We can start on the men's side just because I know that's where a lot of the attention is going to be on both teams this year.
Of course.
High expectations for both of these teams. Just kind of take us through what happened last season with the men's team, Pavle. They did pretty well.
Yeah, it seemed like this group really gelled together. It was a lot of seniors last year, obviously, that are gone now for this season. And, it seemed like a good year, obviously, ended up winning the Big 12 championship game against Houston, which was really fun to watch, just that whole journey throughout their time in Kansas City. And then obviously making the Sweet 16 was really fun to watch, too. I know I got to go to Omaha for the round of 64 and 32 matchup against, South Dakota State and Washington State. So
fun times.
Yeah, it was fun times. Washington State game was probably a little bit closer than I'd like to be, but then again, it's March Madness. Anything can happen. So, But they still got the win either way, and unfortunately, they weren't able to beat the likes of Terrence Shannon in Illinois and Boston. So, but, we're in a new season. I feel like a lot of high hopes for this team, probably going to be ranked top 10 if I were to assume, just because what the team did last year. And I don't know what your thoughts about that either, but, I think this will be a fun year for sure.
I'm very excited for this team. Basketball is probably my favorite sport that Iowa State has, whether it be men's or women's. And I think that of all of the years that there's a year to be excited for it, this is the one. Just considering what they were able to do last year with, like you said, winning the Big 12 championship. They went undefeated at home. In the Big 12, they went 16-5, and that includes the Big 12 tournament. Made the Sweet 16, but I feel like their quadrant of the bracket was a little bit unfair because you had the Big East champion in UConn who went on to win the national championship for the second straight year. You had Illinois in there. You had Iowa State, both of them being the Big 10 and Big 12 champions. You also had Auburn in there as the SEC champion. Granted, they got knocked out first round or something. So, but again, it was just a tough draw. I think if Iowa State can get a better draw this year, they could make a further run. I think this is a year that I don't think the Final Four is out of the question.
100%. Obviously, after looking at the Big 12 early season predictions, what we saw, it seemed like Kansas was the favorite to win the conference, which is a little mind-boggling to me. I mean, I know Kansas is still obviously going to be a really good team, but at the same time, Houston and Iowa State are right below them respectively, and I don't know why Iowa State shouldn't be first, have a case to be first in the preseason Big 12s, because you saw what they did last year, when played really well, this team played really well. I know they have changing pieces, but still they should be able to perform. Yeah,
I mean, I thought at least they would be ahead of Houston just because Jamal Shead is gone. I know Iowa State lost some pieces, but I think that the pieces they replaced him with have the opportunity to be even better.
Yeah.
And one of those in particular that I'm excited for is that center position. I know Rob Jones is gone, and he was a solid piece to the team, but I feel like if Iowa State had a better center, one who could consistently make free throws, one who could consistently make layups, they would have fared better. And I think that all starts with Charlotte transfer Deshaun Jackson. I think he's the biggest piece that Iowa State picked up over the transfer portal. He was a huge piece at Charlotte. He's 6'11". He shoots it better than Rob Jones did. He led Charlotte in field goal percentage last season. He averages about 6 rebounds per game. If he can get those numbers up a little bit, Jackson has the makings of being a fantastic piece to the Iowa State offense. Not just that, but the defense as well, considering his height.
Yeah, I have to 100% agree with you there. And obviously, before his time with Charlotte, he spent technically 3 seasons with Washington State, but that was last year. Obviously, he didn't play because of medical issues, but still, just from talking about his stats, like you said, he started all 30 games for Charlotte last year, averaged 11.4 points, 6.1 rebounds, 1.7 assists, nearly 1 block a game, and 0.6 of steals. So he's getting there in every stat. He's only getting at least one in every stat, like the lower stats, at least 100 points. He still did pretty well. And, he led the team in field goal percentage, which is interesting to me. Charlotte has a big guy, 54% shooter. So that's huge in terms of having a big guy that can actually consistently shoot, and especially coming to that free throw line when I think Iowa State was like near the bottom in terms of actually making their free throws last year.
Yeah, so they didn't feel great. I mean, they never really do, to be honest.
Yeah.
Free throws is always an Achilles heel of Iowa State basketball.
Yeah, that's always the thing. But, that's always good to see that TJ and his staff were able to get somebody like Deshaun to the team, because I know he'll be astounding. I don't know, at the next level.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what he can do. Just, again, knowing his height and the fact that I know scoring is obviously the stat that everyone looks at. It's probably the most important, because when you score, you win games. But at the same time, his defensive capabilities is what I like a lot, and is what I think is going to help him out with this team, because of how defense-oriented Iowa State is, with the way that they're able to trap the ball, the way that they're able to pressure offenders with their defense. I think he's a fantastic piece. At Media Day, TJ also said that, or Deshaun Jackson said that they talked to him like day one that he hit the portal. Like, they wanted him, and they got him. Yeah,
what happens when you want him, they got him, and they obviously were able enough to persuade him to come to Iowa State, and I feel like he's really excited to play with this team for the new season. Obviously, like we said, high hopes for this team, and he should be able to perform to those expectations of playing high-level defense while being able to score the ball for this team.
Yeah, another guy from the portal that I'm excited that they got. I feel like I say excited way too much, but
we are excited.
It's the word.
It's the mood.
I'm probably gonna say his name wrong. Nate Heise or Nate Heise?
I think it's Heise.
Heise. Okay, Nate Heise from Northern Iowa is on this team. He started all 32 games last year for UNI. He led UNI in scoring. He averaged a career-high 13.4 points per game. He played nearly 33 minutes, so he's got a lot of experience, and he can score. He shot nearly 50% from the floor, 35% three-point shooter, which is going to be big for this team, because knowing that, so they've got Jackson on the inside. Obviously, he'll be the big center that they're going to go to, but if they can knock down shots on the outside, that's going to be a big piece of it as well. And there's another three-point shooter that we'll get to talking about later, who's going to be a big bench piece. You probably already know who I'm talking about, but we'll get to him. Yeah.
Your boy.
My boy.
Yeah. But no, yeah, just talking about Nate, obviously, like we talking about shooter, he's obviously got it. Did it really well at UNI, but then now going to the next level, traveling south, I guess, from Cedar Falls, Iowa to Ames. So I'm going to be excited to see what he does. Obviously, we don't expect him to probably start this season, because we already have an established starting lineup full of guards already. So this shouldn't be a problem. But then, yeah, just talking about the bench piece, obviously him and then Curtis Jones, who we'll talk about a little bit later. Like, I feel like we got two really great shooters that come off the bench that could benefit this team in so many ways. And I feel like I'm excited to also see Nate's ability on defense, but especially with TJ's high defensive prowess.
Yeah, and then like you talk about with those guards that are coming back, we've got a ton of pieces coming back from the backcourt last season, and that starts with Tamin Lipsey.
Of course.
I mean, he was preseason Big 12 first team. I have no doubt he can get there. I think he has the capability of being a contender for National Defensive Player of the Year. The way that he can possess the ball, the way he can spread it around to his teammates is fantastic, but I think his defensive capabilities, again, is the highlight of his game.
And not even talking about his improved three-point percentage. Like, he led the team in three-point percentage. Yep. And, the previous season, like, I think it was sophomore season, freshman year, like, he kind of struggled from shooting from beyond the arc. But then this past season, something that really clicked for him. Like, probably all over the offseason, worked on his shooting, really. And that really was one of his strong points, as well as his playmaking abilities and his strong defensive prowess. So I'm really excited to see what Tamin can do. Obviously, like you mentioned, defensive finalist. He was that last year, the Naismith defensive finalist of the year.
Maybe this year he takes it.
He could, yeah. He is a very good case for it. And, he's obviously consistent. He played almost every game except one, which was against TCU last year. But either way, Iowa State was able to get it done. But still, like, Tamin Lipsey has been a phenomenal player, regardless. Ames zone.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the assist-to-turnover ratio, 2.38. Pretty solid.
Yeah.
Fourth in the Big 12, 38th in the country last year. I have no doubts he can extend on that just because of, again, the returning guards, the returning backcourt that they have. Another piece of that is Keyshawn Gilbert.
Keyshawn, our leading scorer from last year. Keyshawn, huge player. Obviously, getting that transfer from UNLV last year, was kind of expected. It was kind of a question of what he would be able to do with this Iowa State team, especially with his first year. I know he was with UNLV. Yeah, I think he was with TJ when he was with UNLV, right?
He was, yep.
Yeah, so
that's why he came over here, because TJ came over here and he was like, I'm going to follow TJ over to Ames.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I'm glad he did.
Yeah, and it worked out really well. Obviously led the team in scoring with 13.7. I think he got all Big 12 second team.
I think that's right, yeah.
And he got was on the newcomer team last year too because he transferred from UNLV. So,
yep.
Probably Keyshawn's last year with the program, and obviously he's going to be a huge piece in terms of scoring-wise, and he played really well defensively too. He got second in steals only behind Taman, and I know Taman outblew that number of steals, nearly got 100, but still. Just in general, Keyshawn's a really hard player. He gets to the basket easily and can make things happen with the ball.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, just being right there with Taman the whole time too. I mean, second in assists. Assists is a category that I think is kind of underrated, honestly. The fact that if you're able to spread the ball to your teammates and trust that they can score, I think this says a lot about guards, whether it's point guard, shooting guard, whatever. But again, when you look at that Big 12 championship run that they went on, nobody better than Keyshawn Gilbert there. There's a reason he was on the all-tournament team for that. There's a reason he was the Big 12 championship MVP. He was integral in taking down Houston and just marching through that entire tournament.
100%. And I'm excited to see what he gets to do when we go back to Kansas City. I'm assuming he'll probably replicate that performance through that tournament and just in general in the conference season, which I'm excited to see what he's going to be able to do because, he's really able to thrive, like we said, in this Iowa State team because who knew what he was going to do, obviously. And then, talking about assists, it's crazy to see when you check the stat list of I see general assists. Keyshawn and Taman are only people who have over 100 assists on the team. The next closest was Curtis Jones with 73. You see the kind of difference in assists. Keyshawn had 155, Taman had 176. So it was a humongous drop-off from one to the other. And, that's crazy to see how, obviously, the guards are able to facilitate it well, the starters. But I'd like to see more, like you said, more assist numbers in terms of the whole roster.
Absolutely, because it's interesting that Curtis Jones is third on that list, considering he was a bench piece last year.
Yeah, only started one game the whole year.
Yeah, but, I mean, when you look at someone off the bench, he was definitely the sixth man of the year. I mean, I had, some issues with his play during the start of the year. I didn't think it was where it needed to be, but as the season went along, as the end of the season started coming, as the Big 12 tournament happened, even into the NCAA tournament, he was that guy from three-point range that you could always depend on. I don't know if we're going to see him get into the starting lineup this year, just looking at the pieces that are still there from the guards, from the backcourt. So I wouldn't be shocked if he, once again, is the sixth man of the year for this team.
Yeah. I mean, you could obviously make a case for Curtis to start just because of what he was able to do last year, but at the same time, you already have guys like Keyshawn, Taman, Milan.
Yep.
Deshaun's probably going to start,
Milan.
of course. Yep. Yeah, Deshaun, and then I'd probably say Joshua Jefferson might start. Just have the other four, kind of what Trey King was. I know Joshua Jefferson, he's kind of the same size as him, I guess.
You probably got to get a forward in there.
Yeah, you'd probably need another forward. I don't know, Milan's already in there as a forward, but I think you need another one. But still, obviously I feel like Curtis, once again, will be a huge impact for this team just off the bench. And just like him and Heisey will be those three-point shooters. He led the team in three-point makes with 73 last year.
Yep. And, I mean, his Sweet 16 performance was what kept Iowa State in the game against Illinois. His 26 points in that game. And then when he did score that many times or have that many points, when he scored double figures, Iowa State went 19-5 in those games. So when Curtis Jones was scoring, Iowa State was winning games. So if he can continue to do that, Iowa State should really have no problem.
100%. Obviously, you talked about that NCAA tournament. He had at least 10 points in all three of those games, and especially Illinois led the team 26. Without him, they wouldn't have been close to trying to beat Illinois.
They lost by only 3 points in that game. Yeah. It felt like it was just so out of reach the whole time, though.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, Illinois just outperformed. I feel like Iowa State, I mean, they were just a better team. Iowa State were able to get the win, but it didn't really matter for them that they got beat by UConn, the eventual national champions. But, I digress. They're still a really good team, but Iowa State, Curtis Jones should be good.
Yep. And then Another fun little factoid, he hit 10 3-pointers across his NCAA tournament games, which was tied, or not tied, it was the third most in school history. So maybe if they get back there, he can make a run and possibly take the lead on that category.
I like to see it, yeah. Especially him coming off the bench. I feel like he would be able to get that stat easier if he was starting, but at the same time, he could still have the bench because he was still able to get 73 makes off of the bench.
Another easier way to get it is to run through the tournament, make it a round further. Make it 2 rounds further.
He just never made it past Sweet 16 in his tenure here with Iowa State, so it's got to be a certain time where he could push past that threshold, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, well, yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. But when you compare it to a team like Iowa, I think it's funny that Fred McCaffrey has like never led them to the Sweet 16, and TJ already has, like twice in 3 seasons. And now here in year 4, you're sitting with an opportunity that you're probably going to be ranked top 10 all year, top 25 for sure.
Yeah.
They could fall out of the top 10 at some point if they go on like a little 2-game losing skid, which could happen. The Big 12 is a tough conference. But there's an opportunity there, not just to make the Elite 8, but I think the Final 4, and I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but maybe the national championship.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but we could always dream.
We'll see. I mean, teams can go on runs. You never know.
I do have the same high hopes for you. Obviously depends on what this team does during the conference season and in terms of going into the tournament where they're at. Like, obviously, I feel like their performance in the Big 12 tournament will be integral to their part of playing in the NCAA tournament. So, yeah, like you said earlier, I know it will be huge for which part of the bracket we're on. I hope we don't get, like, UConn. But at the same time, I would like to see what they do against a team like UConn, but and then again, I'd prefer to play them in the national championship, not in the same bracket where we have to beat them to go on to the Final 4.
They could get UConn and Maui because I believe that UConn is in the Maui Invitational with Iowa State, and that could be for the championship round of that tournament. Because Iowa State gets Auburn in round 1. Round 2, it would be North Carolina or Dayton. I would assume it's going to be North Carolina.
Yeah, most likely.
Who would be a tough opponent. Both of those are going to be tough opponents. Of course. Like round 1, you've got the reigning SEC champion versus the reigning Big 12 champion. Like, that's nuts. Like, one of those teams is going to lose that game and go to the loser's bracket.
Yeah. But most likely one of those teams will win the loser's bracket just because of how good each team is. Yeah. Hopefully it's not Iowa State who has to go on to the loser's bracket, but
I agree.
We can hope.
I think on the other side of the bracket, you've got, I think UConn's there.
Yeah, Michigan State.
Michigan State. Yeah. Is Colorado in that too?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. And then there's one other team that I'm forgetting.
I can't remember. I don't think it's another Big 12 team. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
No, because Colorado.
Okay, wait a minute. It's Memphis.
Memphis. They're beatable.
Yeah, they're not going to make it far.
Yeah,
if I had to Memphis has to play UConn round 1.
Yeah, the championship for that's probably going to be UConn versus Iowa State or North Carolina.
Yeah, or Auburn. If Iowa State does,
if Auburn does,
it'll be a close game, and I wouldn't be surprised if Auburn were able to pull it off against Iowa State. But I do feel confident in picking Iowa State over Auburn.
If Iowa State loses that game, they should go on and just win the losers bracket. Yeah, no problem.
Because they'll probably play Dayton after that if they lose, and then play after that either Memphis, Colorado, or Michigan State,
which are all beatable. I would say. Michigan State might be the toughest of those, but.
It would be interesting to see if we played Colorado just because we started off the Big 12 season with them traveling to Boulder. Yeah. And, that would just be an interesting foe to face, playing them in the Maui bracket, which I hope we don't on the loser side. And then starting off the Big 12 season in Boulder would be really fun to watch just because, new Big 12 opponents. And Colorado was part of the Big 12 before. And it's all interesting to see.
Yeah. It is interesting, like, when you consider that aspect of, like, Iowa State has played Colorado before, but it's been
a long time,
a decade and a half. It seems it's been a while. So I'll be interested to see how those games play out. I think that they play Colorado twice, don't they?
I believe so.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. Last time they played each other was 2015, where Iowa State beat them 68-62.
Dang,
it's been that long.
9 years.
It was a neutral site game, too. It was in South Dakota. I think it's for the tournament, right? Because there's no way they'd just play for... This was in 2015, 2016. I don't know if you remember that.
What was the date of the game?
November 13th, 2015.
Oh, that must have been like a...
tournament.
Yeah, or just like a non-conference game because obviously it's not March.
You do hold a 78-70 record over Colorado, just FYI, over the entire record of playing each other, these two teams, so that's always good to see.
Yeah. But before we get into the rest of the schedule and kind of go over like what we think the records are going to be, One more player that I want to hit on that we haven't fully yet, that's Milan Momcilovic.
Yeah.
Who I know you're really excited to watch this season, Pavle.
My Serbian guy.
Yeah,
just brothers. But, anyways, just talking about Momcilovic, obviously excelled really well in his time with Iowa State in his freshman year, too, which is crazy to say. He was Big 12 all-freshman team, obviously deserved it 100%. And, what was interesting to me was, and when we talked to him on media day, he played a significant amount of minutes as a freshman. And obviously he started throughout the season, started every game, but still was third in minutes, only behind Keyshawn and Taman, which is amazing to see how he's able to hold up as a freshman in the starting lineup in a big conference like this. And I feel like he stepped up to the plate really well. And obviously probably his biggest moment this season was hitting that game-winning shot against Houston
100%.
In the corner. I couldn't believe it when I saw it, but they had a little fit. He's got a little remnants of a Dirk Nowitzki.
Yeah,
kind of.
I would
It
say
kind of
so.
reminds me of his game. I don't know what you think.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, to be a true freshman and start all 37 games, not just play in them. Like he started every single game.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't look like a freshman last year.
Mm-mm.
He looked like a seasoned veteran, like a junior, senior even. Like, dude is good at basketball.
Yeah, he was ready for the moment. Like, right when coming out of high school, coming out of Pewaukee, Wisconsin, he was ready for the moment. And obviously it translated into Big 12 ball, and especially with Iowa State. And now, I'm excited to see what he's able to do with this in his second year. Just knowing what he did in his first year is going to be really interesting to see.
Stat-wise, he was really good too. Averaged over 10 points per game, 42% shooting from the field, 35% from three, 80% from free throws, which was probably one of the better percentages on the team, I would say.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, obviously, like we talked about, free throws kind of aspect of Iowa State's game is probably one of the lower aspects. Like, it could be improved upon. But either way, like you talked about, his three-point percentage, I know when I talked to him, he said he wanted to try and shoot more threes. And I know TJ kind of talked about that. And he still was second in the team. Let's say three-point makes with 61, only behind Curtis Jones. So he was the most among starters to have the most amount of threes and just second on the team. So it seems like he's able to obviously play really well at a high level, like we kind of talked about.
Yeah, it's probably just all about building up that confidence in him, just saying like, hey, you have the ability to shoot the ball. We know you can make it. We know we can rely on you. Now go out there and do it.
Yeah.
And I think once he gets that confidence, I mean, it might take, the non-conference part of the season to get that back. But by Big 12 play, I think that Milan is going to be in for a really strong season.
100%.
Yeah. Going into the schedule now, Iowa State men's team starts the season Monday, November 4th against Mississippi Valley State. That's a tough one. They might lose. They might lose right out of the gate.
This is the game I'm watching the most.
Scary
I'm
game.
Stressed about. Let's be serious here. It's Mississippi Valley State. These new team names that we play are just getting funnier every time. Like these long ass.
We played them before. They used to have a better logo. They had it looked like a guy or like a devil or something. Now it's just like a V. Kind of boring. Change it back.
It was interesting, but obviously non-conference play should not really be a problem. This is the time where we get to see the new transfers, though, to see what they've really got with this team.
These first three games, all home games, Mississippi Valley State, Kansas City, and then IU Indianapolis, all going to be good warm-ups before they get into the Maui Invitational, which is going to be games 4, 5, and 6. Starts with Auburn, then you've got North Carolina or Dayton, and then obviously that final game, which we were talking about earlier, Iowa State could get upset to Auburn. I don't think they will. It's a stacked field for sure.
Yeah, that's what this invitation is all about, having these prime teams being able to really excel well in this tournament, really get to show out in the big way.
Resume builders for sure.
Exactly.
And when you talk about resume builders after the Maui Invitational, Iowa State comes back home to play Marquette.
At home, which is really good.
That's a massive matchup right there.
It's going to be a huge one. Hilton's going to be packed. The lines are going to be insane coming out of Hilton for at least the student section for that one, because it's a team like Marquette. We're not playing a bottom feeder Big East team like we did last year. Like we had to go to DePaul.
Yeah.
It's this time we're playing a team like Marquette. It would have been huge if we got UConn here, but I don't know if they play Kansas this year, do they? Or Houston, because they have to play either one of those two. I doubt they play any other Big 12 team besides Kansas or Houston.
Yeah, they might. I feel like they'd,
Either way, that doesn't really matter. We're not talking about Houston or Kansas here, but
we will be talking about the other UConn team later, though.
True. Yeah, we will be, but that's soon enough. But yeah, either way, Marquette, that's probably my favorite non-conference game to look forward to, like at least a home one, because I know we have to go to Iowa City to play Iowa, but they haven't really posed to be a problem of recent. So, but yeah, Marquette's going to be a fun one.
If there is a team in the Big East that can contend with UConn, it's probably Marquette. Creighton, maybe.
Yeah,
Creighton, but I feel like they might just be like a step below. Marquette is definitely that team that I mean, they were my preseason pick last season to win the whole tournament.
Really?
That didn't happen, but
yeah,
another Big East team did. So
yeah,
I'm always high on the Big East. I know that they're a fantastic conference, basketball only. So it's going to be a fantastic test, especially after getting test after test after test in Maui.
Yeah, I don't think you can find ways to hate on the Big East. It's just really fun to watch, just in general, the whole conference, at least basketball wise. You know, it's just amazing to watch. But yeah,
that 4-game stretch right there might be one of the most exciting ones of the season.
100%. No
I
doubt.
mean, there's probably a conference 4-game slate that's going to be good, but considering that it's non-conference, that's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, it's going to be ecstatic. I can't wait.
Yeah, but then after that, going to be Jackson State, should be a win. At Iowa, should be a win.
Should be a win.
I'm going to chalk it down as a win.
Yeah, just because of what they did when they came to Ames. I know they played in Hilton Coliseum, which was different, but at the same time, this Iowa team, besides Peyton Sanford, I think is not really like looking great to me. Yeah, but
no.
So that's really easy to kind of contain at least one guy, maybe two, if they have somebody like emerge early in non-conference. But either way, they shouldn't pose a problem, especially in Iowa. It'll be fun if we beat them there.
They feel like they'll probably be a top NIT team for me. They might sneak into the NCAA tournament. It depends on how things go.
Reach, yeah. Depends on how the Big Ten does too.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. If they can make a run in the Big Ten tournament, I think that Iowa could have a shot to make the NCAA tournament, though. Yeah. Then non-conference finishes out after the Iowa game against Omaha and Morgan State, both at home. Then, like we talked about, conference play starts at Colorado. Seems like Iowa State usually starts conference play on the road.
Yeah,
like it feels like they have in recent years. So it could be a good test, but I'm confident in Iowa State to get the job done on the road. They don't really have a whole lot of road games, though. When you look at the non-conference schedule, it's really just Iowa. Yeah. And then those three non-conference or those three neutral site games.
Yeah. It's really just like they're keeping it in state besides going to Hawaii, which is really nice to see because, you know, you get to see them play really well in the state. I know a lot of Cyclone fans will probably travel to the Cyhawk series in Iowa City this year. So
we will.
Yeah, we will be there. Yeah. Looking forward to it. And the women's one.
Yeah.
Maybe as fans, but, you know, not as reporters. We'll have
tickets are going to be tough to get.
I know. Either that or we're just going to be hanging out in Iowa City with the other Cyclone fans who weren't able to get in the game.
Yeah.
But, you know, we're going to have our new reporters, Ford and Katie, which you will see in the next rendition of Daily Dish, who will be our women's basketball reporters this year. I know you saw us last year, me and Brett, as women's basketball reporters, but now we're handing it off to those two. So
we're moving up.
We're moving up on the way. And obviously, Kaden Storm, who is also in the Sports Weekly podcast, will be with us on the Daily Dish podcast and the men's basketball beat this year.
Boo.
Who is that guy? But yeah, now just going back to Colorado, I know obviously I talked about it earlier. We might see them in the Maui tournament, but I highly doubt it, depending on if they beat Michigan State.
That'd be crazy if they could end up playing Colorado 4 times this year. Maui tournament, twice in the regular season,
and Big 12
and then the Big 12 tournament.
Dude, it would be insane.
That'd be nuts.
At that point, I don't know, man.
Yeah, but after Colorado,
it starts to get interesting.
Big game with Baylor.
We start the new year with Baylor.
January 4th. That game's going to be on CBS, and it's going to be cool, too, because they're going to be honoring those championship teams from the 1999 and 2000 season and then the 2000 to 2001 season. So those tournament teams that won the Big 12 titles, that's going to be a cool day.
Yeah, and obviously the game's going to be on CBS, too, so this is going to be a huge game to watch. You know, Baylor's going to be a tough team. They always are a tough team with Scott Drew as the head coach. So, you know, I'm obviously looking forward to that. I think it's just the right way to start off conference play, playing a team like Baylor at home.
Yeah.
Or first way to start at home on
home
conference.
game.
Because we go to Boulder. I forgot about that. But
the one thing that kind of irks me about this game, though, is that it takes place on January 4th, which is over winter break, which means no students.
At least no students, yeah. I mean, we're still going to have some students going to be there, but at the same time, I agree. Like, you know how Houston was last year? We didn't get to have any fans there, but, like, we were still able to pull it off. But I know the general Ames crowd, like Iowa, like Des Moines area type of fans will still be able to go to that game, support the team, especially with the early 2000s teams getting represented.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I still feel like it's still going to be pretty packed. It's just like, yeah, student-wise, it's not going to be as hyped up as we want it to be.
And then 11 games after that, or 11 days after that, Kansas comes to town, which is still over break, which still means no students. It's like, I know that the general public is going to fill in the stadium as they should, but at the same time, it's like, why would you not want the students to experience these high caliber games against the projected Big 12 winner in Kansas and another top 5 team in Baylor?
Yeah.
Like, I just don't get it.
Yeah, I 100%.
These are the games that you should be having, like UCF, Cincinnati, kind of the bottom feeders, in my opinion.
Colorado, too, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're bottom feeders, but but still, yeah, I mean, in terms of playing in the Big 12, I don't think they'll be as good as they were in the Pac-12 last year, but still, yeah, I mean, talking about that, like, I don't know why UCF is the first home game after break when the students come back, because we go to Morgantown after we host Kansas, so that's so weird to see. I don't know why the schedule makers did that, but then again, I guess they wanted to have the students see more wins because they were playing more of the bottom feeder teams. I know they'll still get to see teams like Kansas State will be a hyped up game just because what
happened last year.
Yeah, what happened last year. That was that was obviously a great experience. And then Arizona, coming to Ames will be huge. They'll be one of the teams that are going to contend for the Big 12 championship. And then obviously our BYU, what happened last year, between Iowa State and BYU, that kind of sparked some interest right there, I'd say. And what interests me most is like both of those games start off March at home, and that's like late season too, because it's Arizona March 1st, BYU March 4th, then Kansas State, we go to Manhattan that Saturday, and then after that it's the Big 12 championship in Kansas City. So
March is going to be a huge month for the Cyclones.
Oh, yeah, this is like the telling part, because I know finishing off February, we kind of had or just February in general is kind of like
February's tough too. Where you got the K-State game at home, then you go to Lawrence to play Kansas.
Yeah, 2 days later
on a big Monday game at 8:00, late night.
I hate late nights.
But then after that, you've kind of got, I would say the biggest lull in the Big 12 season. TCU at home at UCF. They did lose at UCF last year, so they're going to be looking for revenge in that game. But then you're home against Cincinnati and then home against Colorado. But then you have to go to Houston, so that's going to suck.
There it is. Yeah, it's like, okay. It's like,
oh, it's good. Oh.
Damn. Yeah, I mean, we can't obviously take any of these Big 12 games later. Like you said, we lost to UCF last year.
Yep.
But gotta take advantage of these, especially like we talked about before, early March. Like it's going to be integral to their season to be able to win those games, especially I know the start of January, to mid-January is going to be huge, but then talking about February is going to be probably their biggest month along with March. I'm basically saying every month's going to be huge. Yeah. So
I do think there's a good balance with the schedule though, because in my mind, the top 5 teams in the Big 12 in no particular order are Iowa State, Houston, Kansas, Baylor, and Arizona.
Yeah.
So Iowa State obviously can't play itself.
Yeah.
But they play Kansas.
They're fighting against each other every night.
They play Kansas twice. They play Arizona twice. So that's split right there, one at home, one on the road. They play Baylor at home, and they play Houston on the road. So I'd say it's pretty even with how Iowa State's schedule has matched up with these top teams.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. I mean, obviously, I'd like to see Houston come to Ames once again, but at the same time,
it'd be fun.
We did play them twice last year, and actually 3 times we go to the Big 12 championship game. But still, it would have been fun to see. I mean, playing at Houston, we'll obviously see what that team looks like without Jamal Shed by then. But then at the same time, they are a tough team. They're always going to be a tough team to face.
And Iowa State, though, in general, I think is just always a tough Big 12 opponent, considering the fact that they went 16-5 when you include the tournament games, and they did not have a losing record against any of the Big 12 schools. Every school that they lost to the first time, like Baylor and BYU, they beat the second time. So there's that, too, that they've got going for them. Iowa State doesn't lose in the Big 12, and if they do, they get even.
Yeah. And especially last year, did not lose a game at all at home, which is going to be really interesting to see, especially when
it'll be tough to replicate.
Yeah, especially in terms of having our students not going to be there in the early January, before winter break, which again sucks really bad. But that's probably, I feel like, the toughest part of having that undefeated home record, just because we'll be able to have the student section back for the UCF game and on, and I feel like those games from on, maybe early March, will be really easy to, not say really easy, it'll be probably like easier than most to win instead of like playing teams like Arizona and BYU, which will be really tough, but still, I feel like probably gonna only have like 2 losses at home if I were to guess right now, just because it's really hard to replicate an undefeated streak at home. But I don't know what you think about that. What do you think we're gonna do at home?
So the Baylor game is a little iffy to me. So is Kansas, just because, again, no students, which I'm kind of upset about, actually. I wish they were there. The Kansas game especially, just because, like, it's not even on a Saturday either. It's a Wednesday night game. It's at 6 o'clock. Mm-hmm. It's like the week before students come back. I don't know. That one doesn't sit well with me.
Especially when they have to go to Kansas when they have their students way back in, like, Allen Fieldhouse.
And that's a big Monday game. You know that they're going to pack the house for that one.
Oh, 100%. Like, it's kind of crazy to me, kind of going off topic here, about what Kansas fans have to do to be able to get in Allen Fieldhouse. Like, I saw a video of, like, they have to, like, wait days in advance. Like, it's like worse than what it would be for Hilton. Like, for students, like, it's crazy.
The one thing I will say, though, they let them wait inside.
Yeah,
they don't do that at Hilton Coliseum.
Yeah, they don't have to
like,
camp
you've
out.
got to, like, get heaters, generators,
especially
propane.
Later, when it's gonna have to come to times like see here, like,
especially
Kansas
when
State, it's gonna be February 1st. It's gonna be cold. I don't know if it will be as cold in March with Arizona and BYU, but at the same time, it probably won't be ideal. Mm-hmm. Maybe the weather favors us. You never know, but still, like what you said, it's Allen Fieldhouse does give that help to fans be able to, or students, I should be able to wait inside instead of having to camp outside in tents. But you know, the Cyclone Faithful they stick through it. They bear the weather and they get to go inside and cheer for their team.
So I know last year when there was the Kansas State game, I forget what day of the week that was, Wednesday or something last year.
I think it was a Wednesday, yeah.
And then we had the Kansas game that following Saturday. I know people who skipped the Kansas State game to stay in line for the Kansas game.
Same people, yeah.
Yeah.
It was so crazy to see, like, to willingly have, I know one group we especially know, one of the people in that group intentionally skipped out on the Kansas State game just to be able to hold the spot in line for Kansas, which is insane to me. Like, I don't think they would have had a problem staying in the front of the line if they waited until after the game. Instead, the one guy, I think it was one guy, but still was able to wait outside during the game. I think it was cold too.
Yeah.
I'm probably sure he had the game on his phone or whatever, still to watch, but it was crazy to see what they were able to do. Like,
Cody, right?
Yeah, Cody, yeah.
Yep. Shout out Cody.
Yeah, Cody, you're a real one.
Yep.
I know we'll have a story about the bench mob, or not the bench mob,
the front
row mob coming out later, like kind of like a feature story about it.
Yep.
But
there is, I mean, there are a couple of back-to-back games where that could happen again, mostly because there's a Saturday game like mid-February against Cincinnati, and then the following Tuesday, Iowa State hosts Colorado. So that could be a game where that happens. But the other one that I think, well, at the same time, this one might not, because
Arizona and BYU, I feel like it would be for sure.
Arizona's such a big game, though. Like, I wouldn't want to miss
if it was
going to
if it was
Arizona.
switched, I could see BYU being.
If it was flipped, for sure. But since Arizona's first, I don't know if it's going to happen.
They will probably. I'm not going to talk about their plans because I honestly don't know them.
I don't know what they're going to do, but
we'll find out as the time comes what their plan is, which will be interesting to see what they do. And it's going to be interesting to say the least.
But again, I think the schedule it's good. It's balanced for Iowa State. Obviously, it's going to be, fairly easy at the start, but then there's the Maui Invitational, the Marquette game, which are going to be tough.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it. I think Iowa State loses maybe 5-6 games this season. I think they can win a couple more than last year.
I feel like if, like, in terms of, like, what the hype is for this team, like, saying, like, nothing goes wrong, or, like, I say nothing goes wrong, like, no injuries-wise, it's kind of like some wonky performances. I feel like at most we'd be able to have, like, 10 losses, like, just from, like, some games not going some way. Like, it's the competitive Big 12, like, especially going on the road to Arizona, going to Houston, and Kansas will be really tough, but still.
At Kansas State is always a issue for this team.
Especially late season. I know they did it last year. They had to play the last game of the season in Manhattan, and then they have to do it again before the Big 12 tournament, which hopefully we are there for, like Christian and Logan there were for last year.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see. I feel like I have to agree with you. 5 to 6 losses, maybe 7, maybe 8 is kind of my range. Like at most 8 for me, but I could see a way it could be 10. But at the same time, I could feel like you said, I feel like 5 could be the lowest, or 4 even. Depends on what the team does.
We'll just have to wait and see, I guess.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
It's gonna be exciting. Another month or so before the kickoff of the season.
Just a few weeks away.
It's exciting.
Right around the corner. November's going to be a crazy month with the way that football's been going, what they're probably going to do, and then now you add on the fact that basketball is going to be starting and what the hype is around this team. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a fun month.
Yeah,
at least busy month.
At least for the start of the schedule, I'll say for men's basketball, they're just playing on every Monday until Hawaii, so it's not as bad as we expected it to be. Because by the time they come back from Hawaii, like we'll have the Kansas State game, which is the final game of the season, and then a couple days later we have the Marquette game. So I feel like in terms of like having this football schedule, in terms of the men's basketball schedule, it's not as bad, but at the same time, it will be kind of a juggle just to see how we were able to do with both.
Yeah, and at that point, I mean, the Big 12 championship game, if Iowa State does make it there for football, would like already happen or be happening.
Yeah, because that's early December, right? Like,
yeah, I think like the first week of December.
Okay.
No. It should be the second week of December.
Second week of December?
December 7th, I want to say, is when it would be.
That would be crazy.
Because there's the Army-Navy game. Obviously, I think that's after the regular. Or no, maybe Army-Navy is the 7th. I'm unsure. I probably have it backwards.
I don't know. I'm not even sure yet. So I just looked it up. December 7th in Arlington, Texas, if we were to make it there. Which will be interesting to see, because if we do make it to Arlington, maybe we get to travel to Texas to go cover that game, which,
yeah,
fingers crossed for that, obviously, to wait and see if that actually does happen. But then again, if that scenario does happen, which will be interesting, we have Marquette December 4th as a Wednesday, and then the Arlington, Texas game is on a Saturday, but then the next day, Iowa State plays Jackson State at home on Sunday. So
nobody wants to watch the Jackson State game.
Yeah, but I'm just saying
bigger important things.
In terms of covering, like that's going to be interesting, because we know we have to come back from Texas that morning just to be able to make that 5 o'clock game. Mm-hmm. And if not, then I don't know. But I'm not going to talk about that yet, because who knows if Iowa State is going to make the Big 12 championship game because of teams like Utah and
K-State.
Kansas State, of course, and BYU is even posing a big problem right now.
Surprisingly.
So, yeah, surprisingly. And who knew the Mormons were going to play well? But yeah, I see Sports Weekly is meant for football right now. We are talking about basketball here on the Daily Dish. So
yeah, we have theme games already for the basketball season. Yeah. First game of the season, Stripe Hilton. So all the sections going to be like, red, yellow. Yeah. Then the next one going to be Whiteout against Marquette.
That should be good.
That's going to be a scene.
Yeah.
Scene straight out of a movie.
Marquette's probably going to wear like yellow or blue, I'm assuming.
Probably, yeah. Then the Baylor game, obviously recognizing those championship teams from, a while
early
ago.
2000s, yeah.
Yep, early 2000s. Then another Whiteout game against Kansas State when they come to town. Color It Cardinal against Cincinnati. Gold Rules against Arizona for that Saturday night game to start off March. And then Stripe Hilton a few days later against BYU.
Dude, I'm waiting for the Arizona game, because the Gold Rules is going to be those new uniforms.
Yep.
Those gold uniforms. Oh.
Yep, the throwbacks.
Speaking of those uniforms, we can kind of talk about that right now. What do you think about those uniforms?
I like them.
I do too.
So when it came to the football uniforms and they had yellow ones of those, I hated them. I thought they were so bad, so ugly.
Not the play.
But when it comes to basketball uniforms, I love the yellow.
I think it's Cyclones awesome. Logo. It's just right on that jersey.
I mean, they put it on the football helmet this past week. It wasn't the same colors. I kind of wish it was, but that was cool. But yeah, I'm digging the new uniforms. They're sick.
Oh my God, I can't wait. I mean, obviously, hope they wear more than just once.
If they made them like the full-time uniforms and had like an inverse of it where like, red base, yellow lettering.
I like
that. And then like
a
white one with like red lettering. I think that'd be cool.
I wouldn't be opposed to just have that as like the general uniform.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, honestly, make that
the all whites, like the color cardinal. Yeah, that'd be.
Make that the main uniform.
Yeah. A rebrand time for Iowa State. Just have the old Cyclones logo. That'd be sick.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the start of a new era.
Yeah,
sort of. I mean, this is year 4 for TJ. If they rebranded when TJ started, that would have been nice.
Yeah. And that's the thing. That would have been just the right time, I feel like. But who knows if TJ would have done it.
I mean, football just had a rebrand.
Yeah.
And they've had, I felt like they had an identity with their old ones under Matt Campbell, but now they're starting fresh. New uniforms seem to be working well.
Seem to be
They're undefeated with them.
True. Yeah, that's the most important part.
Yeah, but again, basketball season's coming up. Iowa State should be in for a men's basketball is coming up. Iowa State should be in for a really strong year, but so should the women's team. We talked about men's basketball. Now we'll go to the other side. The women's team, again, should be in for a fantastic season. Last season, they weren't expected to do a whole lot. They had the 5 incoming freshmen. Kind of felt like it was supposed to be a rebuilding year. They go on a tear. They go to the championship game in the Big 12 tournament. They make it to the round of 32 in the NCAA tournament, and they were right there to make the Sweet 16. It feels like this year they've got a lot of returning pieces. They lost a couple key pieces, but replacing some with, I think there's some potential there that they can definitely be better this season. They were ranked in the preseason poll by ESPN 8th. There's a lot of promise with this team.
Wow, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's, like we said, there's obviously a lot of promise with this team. We talked about last year, like, who knew, like, Iowa State was going to excel the way they did. Bill Fennelly and the staff did a tremendous job with this team.
Yeah.
Like, just having a lot of, like, unknown freshmen, like, who knew Audie Crooks, Addie Brown were going to take off like they did. And obviously we had somebody established, like Emily Ryan, who's been with the program for a long time now. So I was already kind of expected that Emily was going to perform well, but who knew that these freshmen were just going to perform like they did. And now we're at the point where we're talking about top 10 team in the nation.
Yeah. Like we talked about a lot throughout last year, though. I mean, a few of the freshmen had to step up right away because Emily Ryan was out with her injury.
Yeah.
But she's back. She should be ready to go to start the season. There is one injury to report. That is Lily Taulele, one of the new centers. She'll be backing up Audie Crooks. Sprained her ankle, so she'll be out for maybe like 5 weeks or so. Yeah. So nothing
on conference schedule.
Yeah, nothing like too serious, but again, it's something that happened and needs to be brought up. But that's about it for injury-wise. Everyone else should be good to go.
Yeah, seems like everyone else is healthy, ready to go. And obviously talk about Lily, like, obviously we'd like to have her out there to see what she does with this Iowa State team after being a transfer. But at the same time, it's an unfortunate injury. And, I'm excited to see what she's able to do when she comes back, whenever she does.
Me too. She's not the only transfer named Lily, though. We also have Lily Hansford from Oregon State. Yep. Fantastic three-point shooter, as are a lot of the players on this team. So that's going to be a key area to watch out for is three-point shooters.
Yeah, it's going to be insane. Like, I know Kenzie Hare's another three-point shooter. Talk about the transfer from Marquette. She should also be a really good three-point shooter. And then while we're on the topic of transfers, might as well talk about Sydney Harris, coming from TCU, the only transfer to come from another Big 12 team, which it's going to be interesting when we do play TCU. I know we'll be at that game for a reason. But
as fans.
Yeah, as fans. Yeah, we love our Iowa State team. But still, just talking about Sydney Harris, great player from TCU, and I'm excited to see what she's able to do.
Yeah, she's one that all the players are talking about. Like, she brings the energy. She's one of the most, fun to be around on the team. So I'm looking forward to see what she can bring to this roster. Another player who I'm excited for is Eiley Tankey, freshman. She's a fantastic three-point shooter. She won. There was that high school competition that she was in. Earlier this year when she was still in high school. She won it. She could be the next one to take over a position like Hannah Bellinger had last year. I know Hannah was there for only one season, but she was a fantastic three-point shooter, led the team. I wish she was coming back this year, but unfortunately that's just the way that things go in college basketball. But watch out for Tankey to take over that top three-point shooting spot. She could. She could.
Yeah. I'm just excited about the team's potential from the three-point range itself. Like, we have a lot of shooters on this team, and I'm excited to see, Kelsey Jones, who's there last year, seemed like she could shoot the ball, and Ariana Jackson has the ability to also do that. So, just the terms of talent if we have from beyond the arc is going to be insane this year, like, in terms of potential, because I know, obviously, once we see them play, we'll get to see that, but, it's going to be interesting to see, especially with Bellinger's departure.
Yeah, and we haven't even touched on, Emily Ryan can shoot the three really well. She was the best when it came to the Stanford game last year, getting her career high in 36 points. She made 6 for 9 three-pointers in that game, something crazy like that. Ariana Jackson didn't really score a lot last year, But when she did shoot the ball, she was efficient. She was able to score well. So I'm hoping that we know that she's a great defender. She should continue to be a great defender, but I would like to see her maybe take another step up in her offensive numbers.
Yeah, for sure. I know there's obviously room for improvement there, but still Emily's like one of the biggest leaders on the team. It's like not even to be said just because she's been with the team the whole time. Like she even does it both offensively and defensively. Like she was tied for the most amount on the team for blocks, which is weird to say because Audie Crooks and Addie Brown are obviously bigger than her and have more of an ability to block shots compared to Emily Ryan. But she gets up there and she's able to contest shots, which is really cool to mention. So yeah, I mean, Emily's been with this team for so long and she's done really well with this team. And yeah, it's gonna be exciting to watch her for probably her final season. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It would have to be. I would assume.
Because I don't think she has more eligibility.
Yeah, but yeah, Emily Ryan, a Kansas native, as is Addie Brown, who I thought was probably besides Audie Crooks, I thought Addie Brown was the best player on this team last year. Her ability on both sides of the ball to score from wherever, inside, outside, her defensive capabilities. She did not play like a freshman last year. She looked way better. I mean, I kind of want to compare her to Milan Momcilovic on the men's side. Both were freshmen, both played outstanding, and both have a big opportunity to continue to grow and be better into their sophomore years.
Oh, yeah. Addie Brown, like you said, was a key piece last year. Obviously, we're going to be talking about Audie Crooks a lot in this podcast this year, but that's warranted because she's so good. But, yeah, just talking about Addie Brown, being able to do it both in the scoring position and just rebounding. Like, I know she didn't have, or no, I guess she did have a good amount of double-doubles this year, which is huge to see from a player like Addie Brown.
Yeah.
And I know she's going to be able to replicate that this year because of her skill set. But one thing I would like to see her do better is her shooting because she was inconsistent, to say the least, of her shooting numbers. Like you talk about the Big 12, or just saying like the NCAA tournament, like, and the Big 12 tournament, I should say too, like, she shot 2 for 8 against Maryland, 1 for 5 against Texas, and even before the season, earlier in the season, she kind of struggled with shooting. So, like when we kind of talk about room for improvement, it definitely is there for being able to make her shots, like better shot selection, I'd say also for her.
Yeah.
But then again, she still is one of those players who can make a huge impact in the game, and I have no problems thinking she's gonna have a really good sophomore season.
I agree wholeheartedly. But then, obviously, you can't not talk about Audie Crooks. I mean, she had probably the best freshman season ever in Iowa State women's basketball history. Like, she broke the scoring record. She shot over 50% from the floor, 57% from the floor. She even could make threes. Like,
I mean, she could do everything.
Yeah.
That's what we're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it.
Like 5 for 16 in threes, 2 of them coming in the Big 12 tournament. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I say her and Caitlin Clark put Iowa on the map for women's basketball. And I feel like just in general, like the women's basketball, like the whole nation needed somebody like an Audie Crooks to have like at least a younger person to have like this big of an impact. And you see like what she is able to do. It's just like you can't even like fathom like what she was able to do. Like she did so much for Iowa State, and just like she had so many accolades just in her freshman season, just unbelievable to see. And she's gonna be the biggest piece once again. Like led the team with nearly 20 points per game.
Yep.
And what was that Baylor game, a West Virginia game where she just went off? I don't remember which one was it.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I know. Well, her tournament game though against Oregon State.
Yeah, that was a good.
Or
one.
no, Maryland. Not
Maryland.
Oregon State. Maryland.
Oregon State.
She had like 40 points in that game.
She carried.
Yeah,
that was
unbelievable.
Yeah, she single-handedly brought them back into that game and won them, get out of the first round because it looked like they're going to be first round exits, but then they were able to make it to that second round. And Stanford was a different story, the second round, but we know that doesn't really matter in this retrospect now, thinking of next season. But still, Audie Crooks, she's just an amazing player. That's all I can say about her.
She had double figures in every game except one, and that was her first game against Butler.
Unbelievable. Like, unbelievable.
There were 5 games in a row. When you take away the Stanford game, those final 5 games of the season, she scored 22 or more points in all of them.
Dear, wow.
Like, she just got better as the season goes along, and that's obviously what you want to see out of your players, but I mean, to like get like nearly exponentially better is just wild. And again, she's another player that again did not play like a freshman.
Mm-hmm. She did. She looked like she was there for like her 5th season, like Emily Ryan. Like she's like, I couldn't believe, like, you know, even early season when you said she didn't get double figures, like Isnell Nadabu was the starting center going into the season last year, and you know, obviously Butler didn't really get the opportunity to score a lot of points, but you see after that, her second game at Drake, what we were there for, 23 points. It's like she really showed out that she should be the starting center, and obviously got that role very soon after. And
game 5 was her first start last year.
And she never gave that role back to Nadabu, who ended up transferring just because of what Crooks is able to do. And you can't put it into words how great she's been just in her freshman year.
The fact that she was able to hang with players like Ayoka Lee from Kansas State multiple times.
That was a great matchup
to battle in overtime with Cameron Brink was incredible. And again, Cameron Brink, like WNBA talk for like a second here. She was my preseason rookie of the year. Didn't happen. She unfortunately tore her ACL. Yeah. But again, she's a fantastic player. And to see Audie go one-on-one with a senior like her last year, that was cool to see. Audie has so much potential.
Yeah, and I know she will get to go against Ayoka Lee once again this year, which will be fun to watch. Like,
I think both of them were preseason Big 12 first team, if I'm not mistaken.
Sounds about right, yeah.
I think Ayoka Lee was the preseason player of the year, though.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense because what she's been able to do, she's been with, she's been in this Kansas State longer. She's been along Big 12.
You know what she hasn't done though is beat Audie Crooks.
True, yeah.
Audie Crooks is 2-0
against Audie Crooks.
Yeah, Audie Crooks 2-0 against Ayoka Lee. So
yeah,
I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I have to throw it out there. You know, it's kind of
it's a factual statement.
It's a little rivalry right there. You know, between these two.
They'll play twice again this year.
Yeah, they do, which we'll go into later when we talk about the Big 12 schedule. But still, yeah. Just talking about this, you know, I feel like just going back to the general overlook of this team, like this is a really promising team, especially second year with some of these freshmen from last year who should make a step up again. I know Audie Crooks and Addie Brown should be able to replicate their performances last year. And then it'll be interesting to see if Ariana Jackson and Kelsey Jones get to step up their games into their sophomore seasons too. So yeah, just like men's basketball, it's a great time to be a Cyclone right now for basketball.
I wouldn't be shocked if AJ and Kelsey do improve on their numbers. I mean, I feel like they should. I feel like they will.
Yeah.
If I had to pick like a starting 5, obviously you've got to go Audie.
Like, I don't know about that. No.
Yeah. Audie for sure. Emily for sure. Addie for sure.
Yep.
Like those are the big 3 for Iowa State women's basketball.
You got the forwards already filled out. Just about like either you put in more guards, like forwards.
I'd go AJ. She has a lot of starting experience. She started quite a few of the games last year because Emily Ryan wasn't playing. Her defensive capabilities, I think, is what deserves her to be a starter. But then that 4th one is where it gets a little iffy. And I know that last year Bill Fenley switched it up a lot of that 5th starter position. And I think that we could see a lot of that this season as well. Sydney Harris might be one that gets that spot just because she's a junior. She has that experience. She's played Big 12 basketball for multiple seasons. So there's that aspect of it. Kenzie Hare as well. She comes from the Big East. She's got experience against good teams as well. So she could. Lily Hansford could as well, another junior. I'm thinking that they'll probably start with some of those transfers that have the experience, and then maybe see like, okay, how are they playing now? Who can we, fit in to see how they play? And that's exactly what the non-conference part of the season is for, just to experiment like that.
Yeah, you get to see this growth from this players who obviously haven't been with the program. And you didn't even mention one player returned from last year, Kelsey Jones.
Yeah.
We could have a full starting lineup of people who returned last year, and the whole bench could just be transfers and freshmen. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like any of those options would be perfect for the starting lineup, I feel like. And even if they don't put, like, Ariana Jackson to the starting lineup, I feel like she'd be okay, like, perfect to come off the bench, maybe that 6-man off the bench. So, yeah, I mean, just to see this growth would be, like, huge, obviously, early in the season. One
of the interesting things at Media Day that Bill said was he wanted all the players to write down how many minutes they wanted to play a game. And there's 200 minutes per game because, 5 players, 40 minutes. He said after he added up all of the minutes, it added up to 390.
Wow.
So obviously there's a lot of talent on this team. Everyone wants to play, but they understand that you've got to work to get to that starting lineup. There's a lot of work that's going to go into it. Everyone's going to probably see court time. Like, I feel like at least 10 players a game probably.
Yeah.
They could honestly like sub in like 2 different lineups if they really wanted to.
They could,
Once Lily Taulele gets back from her injury, because she's going to be the one that backs up Audie Crooks this year.
100%, yeah. And I feel like that's going to be the perfect role for her. You know, obviously coming off the injury and seeing what she's able to do at this level will be huge because, you know, she could be one of those players who could perform really well and we could have on the bench or could end up being transferring to somewhere else and playing really well, which obviously we hope for the best for her, whatever she does. But still, yeah, like you talked about, I feel like this would be like the perfect role for her.
Yeah. It is interesting, though, that Audie took over as a freshman center because, like last year, you had Nadabu transfer, who I believe is going to be a senior this year. I'm unsure of where she went, if she went anywhere. Yeah. But your backup center right now in Taulele, she's also a sophomore like Crooks. So you're kind of in a situation like last year and then this year especially of you've got a young center. I was kind of leery on what type of center they would pick up, and I guess it makes sense that Taulele was that one who was the same year as Crooks and just wants to, you know, get better, learn maybe, sit under Crooks.
Yeah.
But then, you know, the next 2 years, obviously Crooks going to be an upperclassman, so that's when you might want to bring in a freshman center to have Crooks develop, you know, later on down the line.
Yeah, I have to 100% agree with you there. And talking about a little bit Taulele, I hope I'm saying that right. You know, she played at UMass as a freshman, obviously transferred here, but, you know, her numbers at UMass, she started 22 games out of the 31 she played in and averaged 6.7 points and 2.5 rebounds and was 5th leading scorer on that UMass team. So I feel like there's definitely room to improve. I'd say in terms of like scoring wise, 6.7 isn't the best, but still at the same time, you know, she's going to be playing that backup role when she gets back from her injury. So it will be interesting to see what she's able to do, especially at the next level here with Big 12 play instead of being where she was at UMass.
Yeah, a lot of promise with this team. The roster is stacked, I would say. There's a lot of talent. They should do some big things. I think they were projected second in the Big 12 this year.
I think so.
After finishing second in the tournament last year.
Yeah.
So
no more Texas this year, so it should be able to make it easier to
Pretty sure
win.
It was K-State who was projected first.
It makes sense because of Ioka Lee and Serena Sundell, I think, is still there. So it makes sense for Kansas State to be above us, but at the same time, you know, there's some talks that we could make first, just like we talked about the men's team, like, you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Could be a big year for both basketball teams, like we've been
100%,
saying.
Yeah.
How about we dive into the schedule a little bit?
Let's dive.
Starts with an exhibition October 30th against Central College. Just kind of like a, here's the team type of game. Here's what they can do.
Yeah.
Then the season actually starts November 4th against Chicago State. Looking at all of these non-conference games, a lot of them should be wins to start the year off. I'm not too worried. Hosting Drake this year. Again, Drake was the first loss of the season last year. That game was in Des Moines, though. I think Iowa State rights the ship this year. I don't see them losing to Drake 2 years in a row.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of factors went into that game. Obviously, Audie wasn't starting yet.
Yep.
And I think Emily was still hurt, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and
because that was the third game of the year.
Yeah, it was only like, yeah, it wasn't the best because of all the factors that went into that game. So, and plus Drake isn't like a team to be slouched on. They are a good team. So, yeah, I feel like
they've got a ton of experience. Still.
Yeah, a ton of experience, which is the main reason why. And they shot really well the last time we played them. So, you know, coming to Ames this year, it will be a good matchup. I feel like it will be. They will be competitive for sure. They won't just like lay down and like let Iowa State roll all over them. So yeah. But I feel like Iowa State should get the win around this time.
Then is probably the scariest game of the season. South Carolina. That's on Thanksgiving.
In Fort Myers, Florida.
Yeah. It's like a neutral site type tournament thing, like they had in Las Vegas last year.
Yeah. And like the men are going to be in Hawaii.
Yep. But this is a scary game. Like South Carolina did not lose last year. Once they beat Iowa pretty badly in the national championship game. I don't know, man. It's going to be a great test for sure. But they're probably not going to win. I mean, South Carolina's just...
I'd have to pencil it in as our first loss. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, It kind of is earlier in the season, so I don't feel like it could be really impactful for this team because I know they do play Middle Tennessee after that,
Right.
2 days later, which I think they should be able to bounce back and get that win before they leave Florida. But yeah, yeah, I know watching this game at least will not be the greatest. We're expecting like, oh, they're gonna be so well, they could be undefeated going to this, and then they say, oh, it's South Carolina.
Yeah.
It's just you can't even say enough about that team. They're just so well rounded. They performed well last season, you saw, and yeah. We could be hopeful.
I wouldn't be shocked if they at least make the Final Four again.
Yeah.
They could make the championship. They could win the championship again.
Yeah.
But after the trip to Florida, they come back for 2 games in Ames. USC, upstate. I've never even heard of them.
You start off at USC, you're thinking, oh, USC, that's USC,
No,
but
USC,
upstate.
upstate.
Huh?
What does that mean?
I've never heard of that school before.
After that, Central Michigan.
Yeah.
But then it's the trip to Iowa City for the Cy-Hawk game.
That'll be a good one.
It will be. It's
No
sold
Caitlin
out.
Clark this time around.
Yep.
Then they got-
Iowa, I forget her name, but they got player from Villanova who was 3rd in scoring last year. Obviously, Caitlin Clark, I'm like 99% sure was 1st. She had to have been.
Had to, yeah.
But-
There's no way she wouldn't have been.
Yeah. But Iowa should be good again. Definitely a tournament team. Definitely a team that can make a run in the tournament again. But I am confident that Iowa State could maybe pull off this upset, if you could call it an upset. It might be, it might not be, but it'll be a great game for sure, just like last year's.
Yeah, 100%. I know. The women's team is obviously the highlight of basketball in Iowa City because the men's team hasn't looked great as of late. And, yeah, having to hold that player from Villanova, who I can't even remember her name, or she keep referring to her as the Villanova transfer. But still, it's going to be interesting.
We'll know her
to see.
name later once that game rolls around.
Yeah, of course. And then I feel like Ariana Jackson should be able to handle her like she did Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark struggled against us last year in terms of when she was on Ariana Jackson guarding her. So, yeah, I'm very intrigued to see what happens. I know the stadium will be packed because Iowa is just so huge about women's basketball. It was when Caitlin Clark came here because of Caitlin Clark, but I feel like at the same time, Iowa still has that hype even without her with this new Villanova transfer.
After the Iowa game, they come back to Ames for Eastern Illinois, but then they go to UConn to play UConn.
Wow. Who knew that they go to UConn?
Or they go to Connecticut to play UConn.
Yeah,
so
for that Invesco QQQ Basketball Hall of Fame Women's Showcase, which is I feel like going to be another tough test because UConn is a good women's basketball team.
It's interesting because I think UConn's in Storrs, Connecticut, so this is like technically a neutral site game, but at the same time it's literally in Connecticut.
Yeah.
So it's a home game for UConn. Paige Beckers, I think, has a fantastic opportunity to win National Player of the Year.
100%. Now with Caitlin
I would
Clark
not
gone.
be shocked if she did. I would be shocked if she didn't.
Yeah, she has all the skills to be able to win that award, and we have all the expectations that she would. And it's going to be an interesting test for Iowa State, especially to end non-conference against UConn on the road will be significant to see, especially like I'm looking forward to see how probably Ariana Jackson will be on Paige, but at the same time, who knows how
Emily Ryan could be,
there'll
matched
probably
up
be a
with
lot
Paige
of
Beckers.
different ones. Yeah,
That would be generational, man. Paige Beckers versus Emily Ryan.
Yeah. Do you think a Paige Becker is on the top of the national level and Emily Ryan's like down there because she's not really as
It's all
nationally
about the
known?
brand.
Yeah, it's all
I'm
about
telling
the
you,
brand.
man. It's all about the brand.
UConn's known as like one of those women's basketball programs to be elite, so yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. Then the Big 12 season starts with
A road game.
It's literally the
A road
same, literally the same game that they started with last year on the road against Oklahoma State. I mean, I think they can win.
And that was a close game.
It's a road game. Road games are always tough, but I think they can start with a win.
It is interesting to see how both teams, like I said, both teams start on conference play on the road, which is funny.
Yeah. Kansas is after that home game, then a home game against Utah, then a road trip to both Arizona schools, Arizona State and Arizona. Then we've got Texas Tech, West Virginia, BYU, UCF, Kansas State. I'm just rattling them all off. Then the one that we're excited for, the TCU game. Cincinnati, Colorado, at Kansas, Houston, at Baylor, UCF, and then we finish home against Kansas State.
It's a decent schedule.
Yeah. So it's a tough non-conference schedule for the women's team. You got South Carolina, you've got Iowa, you got UConn. 3 teams from last year's Final Four. Obviously, they don't have the fully same pieces. Obviously, Caitlin Clark is gone. But, again, Iowa should be a great team. UConn and South Carolina probably going to contend for the national championship, I would say.
Yeah, 100%. Those teams, like you said, top 3 teams. And I don't want to say top 3 teams in the nation, but those three of the top teams in the nation, to say the least, yeah.
Mm-hmm. How about we dive into some Big 12 play a little bit? So it starts off at Oklahoma State, which is the same Big 12 opener that the women's team had last year, which is interesting. But, I mean, I think Iowa State should win that.
Yeah, there shouldn't be a problem. I think it was close last year in Stillwater, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I mean, they're no slouch, obviously, to have, but I feel like they should be able to handle a team like the Cowgirls, say.
Yeah. So that game's on December 21st. Then they'll go into their winter break before coming back on New Year's Day in Ames against Kansas. So that should be a fun one. Kansas is a good team.
It's a good way to start off Big 12 season at home, I feel like.
Yeah. And then another home game that I think that they should win as well, going to be Utah right after that. Then they'll go on a road trip to the Arizona schools. We've got Arizona State and Arizona. So right in a row there, you've got Utah, Arizona State, and Arizona, 3 of the new Big 12 schools for this season that Iowa State's going to get to play.
Yeah, and then even looking back at the Pac-12 standings before they left that conference, all 3 of those teams did not perform the best. I feel like Colorado played the best out of the 4 teams that did transfer over from the Pac-12. So those are all 3 winnable games. I know we get to only host Utah from that 3-game stretch, but going to Arizona, I feel like shouldn't be an issue for this team.
I agree. So they'll go through those games. Then they'll be home against Texas Tech, who Iowa State did lose to last year on the road. Kind of an odd game that one was, but nonetheless, this one, games, I feel like Iowa State can right the ship this year.
100%.
Then it'll be at West Virginia, where they lost last year. Again, it's going to be a tough game. I wouldn't be shocked if they dropped that one. Road games are always tough.
Always tough in the Big 12. And, that game's on Fox/FS1, depending on where it'll be. And so it'll be a nationally televised game to watch. Yeah.
Huge game. Then there's going to be a pair of home games. We've got BYU. We've got UCF. Of those 2, the UCF game I feel like would be an easier win per se.
I know they got Kaylin Peterson, who obviously is the best player on that team for UCF. She is able to score really well against us. She led the Big 12 in scoring actually last year, 20.7, even with Madison Booker and Texas, even with Audie Crooks. So she will be an issue once again, I feel like. But at the same time, that UCF roster as a whole, I don't think could pose a big problem.
If I remember right, Iowa State beat both BYU and UCF last year.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I could not. Don't quote me on that.
Another team that they beat was Kansas State, who Iowa State plays January 30th in Manhattan.
On ESPN.
I wouldn't be shocked if this one they drop.
But what happened last year with Audie Crooks?
They did win on the road last year, but I mean, I'm just saying.
It was a close one last year, to be fair.
Just saying.
Yeah. Nationally televised. I mean,
ESPN.
I have high hopes. I'd say, but at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised.
Obviously, there's a shot that they can win because they did it last year, and they're returning their pieces.
Yeah.
Iowa State is.
Yeah.
Kansas State is too. Ioka Lee's back, but again, you never know. Another game that I know that we're excited for is the TCU game. Haley Van Lith highlighting that roster on TCU.
Reason, yeah.
I just want to go see her play basketball.
Yeah.
That's all.
She's a really good player.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
Yeah. If Paige Beckers and UConn was coming to Ames, I'd be at that game too.
Yeah. Just in terms of the talent, I mean, with everything that Haley Van Lith's done with
like last
LSU.
year when we saw Caitlin Clark play in Ames, that was so cool.
Yeah, they get to sit like 5 feet away from her, like being in close proximity to a caliber player like that. That's huge. I know we won't be able to be able to be there covering. Maybe I will be with AP, but
who knows? Lucky you.
We'll see. If not, then we'll be there as fans for sure to watch the Cyclones play the Horned Frogs.
After that, it will be at Cincinnati. I think Iowa State can win that.
Yeah.
Cincinnati, I think, was near the bottom of the projected standings when they came out.
Great. Yeah.
Then it's going to be home against Colorado, which could be like you said, the biggest test of the new Pac-12 schools. But it's at home.
That's good. Yeah. All the time I play Colorado.
I don't think I'm going to pick against Iowa State in Hilton Coliseum.
Yeah.
That's
in Colorado.
It's just a dumb thing to do.
Yeah.
Unless they're playing a number 1 undefeated team or something. But they're playing South Carolina at a neutral site. So
true. Yeah.
After that, at Kansas, it'll be a tough one.
Yeah.
Did they
especially
lose at
Yeah, they
Kansas
did.
last year?
They
Yeah.
did, yeah.
Yeah.
It was tough.
Mm-hmm. Then home against Houston. I don't know. I don't remember how Houston was last year.
Me neither. I mean,
Forgettable game, I guess.
I'm just gonna say, just in general, Big 12s. Then again,
Yeah,
it will be a tough test.
They're always going to be tough. Conference
Yeah.
games always are.
Yeah,
So will the next one after that at Baylor.
that gonna be a fun one. You know, I remember
that was on Fox too.
Yeah, I remember last year. I don't think you were there for it. But
I wasn't. My
snow.
My car was stuck in snow.
Yeah, you were there for the West Virginia game though last year. I was
Yep.
there for the Baylor one. And
Yep.
when I sat in the press conference afterwards for Baylor, the Baylor coach is wishing that we'd play them twice a year, and so that Iowa State would travel to Baylor, and now they get that chance to do it. And you saw what happened last year, at least from when you were watching from home.
Yep.
It was an amazing battle with this team, and I know when we go to play, especially late season at Waco, which
Yeah, I
will
mean,
be-
this is the final 3 games of the season.
yeah, because after Baylor, you have UCF in Orlando, and then hosting Kansas State before the Big 12. So I feel like that's huge, just to
Yeah.
have that Baylor game right there.
Yep.
It's like the men's having the Arizona and BYU at the end of the schedule.
Yeah. That was a scene last year when Iowa State upset Baylor at home, and Bill was running around pumping his fist, and then runs off the court.
Yeah, that was amazing to see.
That was great.
Fun.
That was
Everyone's
great.
cheering, we love Bill.
Yep. But then after that, UCF, Kansas State, and then it's on to the Big 12 tournament, expanded field with 16 teams. I think Iowa State has the potential to get a 21 season again. I think they have the potential to lose less than 10 games. It might be a stretch, but who knows?
I feel like the home schedule, much like the men's, could go undefeated because we have
Yeah.
to play UConn on the road. We have to play South Carolina in Florida,
Mhm.
and Iowa's in Iowa City. So that right there, at least in terms of home record, we do not have to worry about. And even looking at home schedule,
TCU and
Texas Tech will be tough.
K-State.
At least in terms of teams,
TCU, K-State are the toughest home games I'm seeing here.
yeah, TCU, K-State,
Just because of the star power.
Yeah, and I'd throw in Texas Tech because what happened last year in Lubbock. So, yeah, those 3 teams I feel like pose the biggest threat of keeping an undefeated home streak, but at the same time, I feel like they are able to do what the men did last year and go undefeated.
They can definitely finish top 3 in the Big 12 in the regular
100%.
season.
Yeah, most definitely.
Second place is not out of the question at all.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. But another thing that I think is unique about the 2 schedules with the expanded conferences is the women's schedule stays at 18 conference games, but the men's increased to 20. So
More men's basketball.
more Big 12 men's basketball.
Yeah.
Yep.
It leaves leeway for less, because I know men's and women's have more or men's have more you said they have specific home games against teams, specific away games and home and away, but they have 2 more games to throw in instead of the women's who get to play 2 less games. So I feel like it'll benefit both of them in their own ways. But yeah,
The only difference to it really is that on the men's side, you've got 5 teams that you play home and away. 5 are only home and 5 are only away. On the women's side, you've got 5 only home, 5 only away, and then 3 that are home and away. So there's a bit more you play every team only once in the women's, if that makes any sense. Just there's just a couple less teams that you're not getting to play at home or on the road.
I think the home and away for women's is Kansas, Kansas State, and Colorado. No, not Colorado. I can't remember.
Kansas,
Either one more.
Houston.
Houston. Yeah, Houston. That looks about
No.
right. No. Who are we forgetting? You said 3, so I'm just trying to count that real quick. Kansas, Kansas State, and
I cannot tell.
who knows? But either way, yeah, just like you talked about, yeah. Just having those games home and away. I know obviously having
UCF.
UCF. Okay,
Mhm.
thank you. Yeah. So yeah, who knew it would be UCF? But anyways,
Odd.
yeah, having those games obviously want to have more home games than away games.
Mhm.
But I feel like it'll benefit them regardless.
I agree. But yeah, overall, should be a fun season. I am really looking forward to Iowa State basketball starting up, both the men's and the women's teams. It should be a lot of fun. Iowa State the men's team tries to repeat as Big 12 champions. The women's team is going to try and get back there. We know that they did it a couple seasons ago. They'll try and do it again. But then after that, both teams could make a fantastic NCAA tournament run. There's a lot to be excited for. We'll have more in a couple weeks before the season begins, but just kind of like a quick,
preview.
Well, not really quick. This is a long podcast, probably.
Yeah, men's and women's got a general season preview.
Yeah, season preview.
Yeah,
season
next time
preview.
we'll have Daily Dish. It'll be more about previewing their upcoming games.
The matchups and everything. Yep. But nevertheless, we thank you guys for watching the first episode of the new school year of the Daily Dish. If you liked it, please like the video. Please like it. Please subscribe. Stick around for more. We'll have more of the Sports Weekly podcast and Daily Dish coming up soon. See you guys later.
Roll that outro.